This is the Bible of the ElectroGenic cell. It's not just the best book ever written on the subject, it's the only book ever written on this subject. Brought to you by supporters of Christ.
All right. We in here. Yep. Man. It's my birthday month. It's my birthday month and Father's Day weekend. So we got a lot of work to do. Yeah, but you not really. Let me see. You're not really with the you're not really with the June. You're not really with the June. You Yeah, I know it. See, you with the Geminis. You with the Geminis. I knew you was gonna be with the Geminis. Yeah, I knew you was gonna be with the Geminis. I don't know, something about Geminis, man. Me and Geminis, I don't know, it's weird too. But Geminis are drawn to me and they protect me and love me. And like, I don't know what's up with Geminis. Just a weird vibe with Geminis. Geminis love me though. I didn't realize that until much later on when I had my own Geminis. Once I have my own Geminis, then I was like, oh, okay. So there's a thing to me, like there's a thing with me and Geminis. But yeah, I got, Kylie and Aubrey are Geminis. So I actually have twin Geminis. Geminis is twins, but I got twins. Yeah, I got twins. So it's been exciting to watch them with their twin thing. Yeah, it's been exciting to watch them do their twin Gemini thing. Because think about that. Geminis are like naturally bipolar, or at least, in the zodiac, right? If you get into the lore of the zodiac, Geminis have that dual personality, you know what I'm saying? So to have twin Geminis that's a thing to watch. That's a thing to watch. I promise you. That is a thing to watch because they are night and day, but they alternate which one is night and day. So it's interesting. Yeah, Geminis is unique and special people. Bro, listen to what I'm saying. Listen to this. Listen to what I'm saying. I'm glad you brought that up. Listen to what I'm saying. These new books, right? I felt like it was the end of an era, right? It's the end of an era because we went on our true and living comedic science run lasted almost 100 books by itself. Remember, when we did Melanin versus Diabetes, 6 books, 6 volumes. No. 8 books. It was 8. That series wound up being 8 books, right? Then we did Race Hustlers. Race Hustlers wound up being like 6 books. We did Family Chemistry. Family Chemistry wound up being like 6 books. The True and Living comedic science series went almost 100 books by itself. Crazy. I'm talking about crazy. yo, listen. These new books, I feel like, not even feel like, because I've been like, there's literally more information. And so so I've been getting hit, the response been crazy to the new books because I put out those little stories. I don't know if y'all seen those little stories I put out. You know what I'm saying? I put out those little stories, and those are excerpts from the books. Like, I created this idea called cymatic cinema, right? Cymatic cinema, because the stories are written literally like little miniature movies or like TV series, right? But I don't have the, I don't have Ryan Coogler on speed dial to be like, yo, we need to, you know what I'm saying? So I was like, what can I do? You know what I'm saying? So cymatic cinema, getting back to practicing the art of visualization, right? There are things that we need to do for our memory, for our cognition, that our society, like, I ain't gonna say has edited out, but I'm gonna say technology has taken away from us as a culture, right? For better or for worse. And, for the healing, for the growing, there are things that we need to do. There has never been a culture that lost their ability to visualize things. Like, there are parts of our brain that are going dormant. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, okay, we got to bring, coming off of the dementia book, the dope game, the memory bank book, and still dealing with neurodegeneration, Alzheimer's, and like just in that pocket, I'm like, there are other things that need to happen. And people don't get that. So the same way there is, it's well accepted. Bang. Here you go, right here. Perfect analogy. It is well known and accepted that when you have physical injuries, you need physical therapy. Physical injuries, physical therapy. In our world today, right? People say, oh yeah, well, when you have mental illness, you need mental therapy. But guess what? There is no mental therapy. There is no mental therapy available. Listen to what I'm telling you. There is no mental therapy available. And I know you're like, wait a minute, Doc. You got therapists, you got psychiatrists, you got all of these different facilities. They don't do mental therapy. They call it mental therapy, but what they actually do is emotional therapy. They do emotional therapy. They talk to you about traumatic stress, depression, anxiety, and they talk and you go through these painful. That's emotional therapy they're doing. That's not mental. That's not building the strength of your mind. That's not building the strength of your cognition and your thought processes. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not what that is. That's giving you emotional intelligence. That's giving you emotional strength and endurance. And that's not mental. We need mental calisthenics. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, okay, well, we can get back into that with this. But these books are not that. I just want to say that. Like, the art of storytelling and some of those, that's a part of what we're doing. But these books are different. These books are different. We're writing our own, scientific paper. Like that's another thing. Like, we're typically with, especially like the comedic series, a lot of the book is articles from journals and things like that. In these books, it's our articles. It's different. Yo, it's different. It's different. Like we went to another a whole nother echelon with these books. A whole nother echelon. So people that have been getting the books, you know, they've been excited because, you know, of the information, but the density, like the dense, and what I try to work on with these books is packaging. So there are pockets where it gets real heavy in terms of like the lingo and the science, but we try to confine that to pockets. Whereas most of the book is about expounding and making the information as simple as possible to digest, and then putting that in one space, right? Where you have the science, that's science, you know what I'm saying? And we have references, and, you know, it's still science. So we still have to keep it, you know, respect the craft. But, you know, there's a lot of practicality. There's a lot of practicality. So people are going crazy right now. Like some people are going crazy in terms of trying to figure out what is Inky doing? Like, what is this? is he doing Dr. Seuss? Like, what is this? But then there's the people that rock, you know, that we praise. Like, y'all don't understand. You know what I'm saying? Like, we worship the ground y'all walk on. The people that just buy the like, Inky just dropped a new one, we got to go grab that. And when I tell you mind blown emojis, like I just been getting mind blown emojis. Like, bro, what is this? What mind blown? This is insane. Well, what are you doing over there? Like, how are you putting this in? Like, what is this? But the thing is, for everybody that's been around supporting and watching and building and studying together with us, I keep telling y'all, we're studying together. I'm leading the discussion, but that's all these are, is discussions. Each book is a discussion, you know what I'm saying? Or a group of discussions, you know what I'm saying? And I'm just leading the discussion. We're studying together. So as time goes on, like, I'm getting better, right? I'm learning. So if you watch, it starts here. Watch, I'm gonna show you something. And you got to pat yourself on the back, because without you, there's no way I could have possibly have done this. You got to pat yourself on the back, because there's no way I could have done this without you guys. Electrician prayer manual. Man, I don't even know where it is right now. How about that? Yo, I don't even know. Oh, here you go, right here. Boop, right in my face. It starts in this book. Actually, it starts a little bit before this book, but this is the first book. This is the first book where we started to like in my mind, it crystallized with this book. Writing this book, it crystallized, like, wait a minute. Even though we've had Robert Becker and Dr. Sebi, nobody has actually took the time to get the architecture. Nobody has the anatomy. Nobody has fine-tuned. Nobody has done this work yet. This is uncharted. This is the Wild Wild West. Nobody has done this. That's why so many people that are stealing on the internet. You know what I'm saying? They're only stealing because they don't reference me, you know, just lack of respect. But that's why now I'm to the point where I don't discuss anything on YouTube until after the book comes out. So even when I was on Hotep Jesus platform, like maybe the week before last, he was like, bro, how you just had decided to drop a medicine book? You ain't even let me know formally before you just dropped the book. Like, how you? And it's because when me and him formulated the show, it's things I wanted to discuss. But you know how I roll, like in order to protect our, our research, before I discuss anything on a video, I gotta have the book out. The book gotta be out so that there's a track record before somebody think they flipping, bouncing, whatever, because we have a history of, very, very large platforms, even to Andrew Huberman and Rick Rubin and Jack Cruz and all these guys grabbing the material, you know what I'm saying? So I would sound like a crazy person if I wasn't able to go, okay, well, look, right here in 2022, this guy says he just discovered this. Now here in 2018, I release a paper on this. You know what I'm saying? Like I would look insane as, a guy with gold teeth saying a neurosurgeon stealing his, but I got timestamp. Like, okay, he said he just invented this in 2022. Now look, here we go. Now read this paper published in 2018, but I had written it in 2016, 2017. You know what I'm saying? Like, so now I just make it religion. You know what I'm saying? Before I share any new research that we working on, it's already book is out. So once I start talking about it on the internet, if people want to grab it and flip, you could pretend like, we got time, we got timestamps, you know what I'm saying? Like, so yeah, that's, but that's just the religion now. You know what I'm saying? That's the culture. Before I drop anything, gotta have the books. And so with this was the first one where I realized nobody had thought to redo the anatomy. All of these new things came out. All of these new ideas came out. All of these new truths were revealed, quote unquote, right? A lot of new truths being revealed, right? Oh, the body has an electric component to it, right? We're not even going to say the body's electric. We'll say the body has an electric component to it, right? Now, for me, that was a personal victory and personal vindication, right? Because before Sebi, before Robert Beck, or at least before I got onto them, right? Because they were doing what they were doing before I was alive. But before I got hip to them, just from my upbringing, I was interested in chakra stuff and light body and Tantra and Kundalini. And those are the things that primarily drove my interest from preteens. And reading everything I could find and eventually joining a tantric study group. And I learned, okay, so Kundalini is this. This is ancient Indian precursor to our nervous system and ionic conduction, right? This has nothing to do with chakras or light body stuff. This is totally different. Then chakras, I learned, okay, especially like when I joined the Buddhist temple and there, okay, Upanishads. Okay, so this is a system of meditation and has nothing to do with Kundalini, nothing to do with light body. And then light body, I'm like, oh, so this is a Kemetic concept. So this is where Kemet comes into play. Kemet, they talking about light. Oh, okay, so in America, where everything is commercialized and just sold, everything is commercialized and packaged to sell. They've taken all of these concepts and created a new thing for America called Eastern philosophy. So in Eastern philosophy, you get a value meal. You get chakras mixed with kundalini, mixed with light body, mixed with prana and chi and sekhem and all of these different, Eastern spirituality. Whoop. Mad disrespectful. Mad disrespectful. I don't even have adjectives to describe how disrespectful to that is to all of those cultures, the people that really practice those things, especially for people here in the States that study the gobbledygook and become masters of gobbledygook and then wonder why they're not respected by people from those respective communities when they spend 5, 10, or 15 years learning gobbledygook, and then they wonder why they can't be respected by people from those other cultures abroad. Like, bro, you you spitting on, like, you're not showing reverence to, so that was like early on where so fast forward, at the time, mind you, this is the 80s. It's karate on Channel 5 time. You know what I'm saying? Like, so you got folks jumping off of buildings and doing kicks and all. So it's all kind of just seen as ridiculousness. Like, that's not real. That's Jesus. Jesus is real. That's not real. Jesus is real, right? The blood of Jesus. Right? Like, so fast forward, when I got my hands on Robert Becker's book, that was, and I don't even know how many copies of that book I bought, because people would steal it. Like that, like the Behold the Pale Horse book, a lot of people would steal that book. I had to rebuy it. But that Bioelectric book, that was a classic. And nobody couldn't dispute that. Nobody could dispute the things in that book. So I was like, oh! I was like Hulk Hogan, like the 22-inch pythons about to run wild on. I was invincible with that. If you had some credentials, I was slapping you upside the head with that. Period. Like, oh, you got credentials? You think you know something? You think you know something about the body, buddy? Woo! Let me get you. And I got my hands on that and stuff like that in that pocket before I really got into the black guys, right? So before I get into Dr. Africa and Dr. Sabi and Jewel Pookrum, and before I even learn about that whole universe, I'm Robert Becker, and I'm going Tesla. I'm in that pocket. I'm over there, J.J. Thomas, and like I'm out in that space. I'm in the science, like science. I didn't even get into the applications in terms of I didn't relate the global epidemic of Black health issues to ignorance yet. I didn't put the 2 and 2 together yet, even though older cousins, uncles, they come in with the 5%, supreme wisdom lessons and, masonry and just all of those other components, right? I hadn't really had, that was the full extent, Elijah Muhammad, How to Eat to Live, No Pork, you know what I'm saying? Like that was the health movement. Elijah Muhammad was the health movement. Like that was that. No pork, you know what I'm saying? Like that. Navy beans, you know what I'm saying? Like that was the health movement. So it was a while before I was able to put the two together. But I had heard I heard over and over from my church people, right? Because my pops was serious Catholic, and other black folks we in the church, right? Just we in the church, right? So in the church, you hear my people are dying for lack of knowledge, right? You hear that. Within the nation of the gods and earths and the nation of Islam and all of those things, you hear my people are dying for lack of knowledge, but it's like nobody took it literally. Nobody took it literally. I came with the literal. I was like, oh, wait a minute. Are we overthinking this? Maybe this is a literal statement, because this is like everywhere. We don't have to debate about this. Like, this isn't Black Muslims versus the Christians versus the Nawabians versus the this versus the 5% versus. I'm like, all of y'all are on diabetes medication right now. Like, let's stop playing. Let's stop pretending and playing games. Like, all of y'all are on insulin right now. Y'all all taking insulin shots. Like, what are we talking about right now? Oh, I'm the nation of gods and earths and whoop, 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 and cipher divine and blah, blah, blah. And Jesus is saving them, woo, woo, and Jesus is woo. I'm like, yeah. I got you. But you do know that Jesus, Allah, Muhammad, Elijah, I said, you name them, Osiris. I'm like, you do know that they don't want you to be on insulin, right? You do know, like, whoever you working with, Allah, I'm not trying to disrespect nobody's you do know that the abundance that they're trying to offer you through their scripture and spiritual growth is based around your health and you living long and you becoming intelligent and maintaining your memory and sexual vitality and being able to play games with your kids and ride a bike and run and walk without like, you do know that's what this is about, right? Like, this isn't. So that I realized, like, oh, wait a minute, 2 + 2, this knowledge right here is the knowledge that we're ignorant of that's causing my people to die for lack of knowledge. Like, this, it's the only knowledge. But it's so blatant. It's right. I couldn't believe that nobody, but like, that's how God works. The thing that's for you is for you. And nobody in the world was able to see it before you was able to see it, because it wasn't for anybody else. It was for you. Now you bring this to the world. This is your thing, right? This is your purpose, right? So yeah, but it just sitting right there. Why would people die? Well, because they don't have health information. Well, what kind of health information? Like, what are they missing? Right? What are they missing? Right? So it starts right there with that, right? And then once, for me, is that's where the jump comes in, because once I get this electrical understanding in my mind, right? Now the melanin becomes a different thing for me. So now I'm kind of like at odds with everybody in the black and like the militant, because really holistic is a thing that evolved. The Black conscious movement, it was the militant movement first. It wasn't all these different things going on. It was just, F the white man, the white man's the devil, and everybody kind of agreed on that part. And then your way to combat whatever, colonize it, whatever you want to call it, that's where you differed. So maybe you felt like the church was better, or the synagogue, or the mosque, or the whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, you came with whatever your solution was that resonated with you. But I was at odds early on with everybody, because melanin was like like nobody had any facts on it. Nobody had any facts on it. They just knew, like, oh, we're being racially oppressed, So obviously it's this thing that makes us different. That's the problem. So yeah, we're just going to elevate this thing to like superhero status. Like, yeah, melanin. And no one else has it. White people don't have melanin. That's why they're jealous. We have it and they want it. Right? And melanin works through the pineal gland. And the pineal gland works through the chakras. Oh my God. Crazy stuff. Crazy stuff. So I had to go, be at odds with everybody. Like, yo, hey, has anybody ever just got one of these books on pineal gland? They have textbooks that, you could just get the brain anatomy. They got whole chapters and even some specialized books that talks about this pineal. Yeah, we can just read up on this thing. Yeah. Like there's some studies. We can read. Our ancestors, they fought and died so that we could read out in public. I'm like, we don't have to be, we ain't got to be shamed to read books and teach the letters no more. We can read out in public. But, that was a thing. You know what I'm saying? But that's where I went immediately. Like once I got the electric thing, because you learn in grade school, electricity, magnetism, light. That's an unbreakable trinity, period. Right? So that's the early formation of understanding the trinity for me anyway. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, oh, science and religion, y'all do know y'all saying the same. I guess Charles Darwin then created this division of mental, foolish, this mental blocks that folks can't get by. But this science and religion, y'all saying the same. The Trinity? I'm like, yeah, this is electricity, magnetism, light. They're like, no, that's not in the Bible. I'm like, literally in the Bible, it says God is light. What do you need this book to say for you to get it? Like, how much more plain should this book be? Because it says it right here. Yeah, then we can go right to this passage where you're misinterpreting that. I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm misinterpreting where it says God is light. So when it says God is light, what it's actually saying is God is what? Something not light, right? It says God is light, but and so the supreme intelligence of the universe created a book where the things that it says, it doesn't mean. I was like, oh, okay, yeah. If that makes sense to you, you roll with that. But that's supreme intelligence to me. I got whoopings when I was a child. And quite a few of those whoopings was accompanied with my parents saying over and over, "What I say, what I mean." I said what I meant. Now, so I have to assume, supreme intelligence. When it says God is light, it means God is light. It doesn't mean God is fat, balding white man who lives on clouds like that. It doesn't mean that. That's not what it says, because it would say God is a fat, balding white man that lives in the clouds. It would say that. It doesn't say that, though. It clearly says God is light right here. So once I got that electrical component, that's where I started looking at like the pigment system and just slowly but surely, And when we got finally, fast forward, when we got to this book, Electrician Manual #1, the Melanin book. This is the first book where we start building the idea of a whole new type of anatomy. Like, yeah, so there's going to be a whole new type of anatomy. And I'm going to just take my time. I'm going to take my time and we're going to figure this out. And as long as I got some folks that's willing to be patient with me and stick with, I'm gonna figure this out. I'm going to literally detective, like Encyclopedia Brown. I'm going to detective work. Like I'm going to go through the body and figure out all these electrical components Like, oh, wait a minute. This is a semiconductor. Wait. Look this up. I'm like, wait a minute. This just says right here, semiconductor. Like, how? I'm like, how? What the? I'm like, yo, this is crazy. How did some of this stuff escape us? I'm like, how did some of this stuff really escape us? Like, how did we not? Like, the words are right there. We not reading. That's how it escaped us. You want to hide anything from people, put it in the book. If you want to hide something from black folks, forget about it. You want to hide something from anybody, you put it in the book. But you want to hide something from black, they're never going to check in the books. Literally, old black people, like my grandma and them, they used to hide money in books. Because if somebody broke in the house, they knew they would tear up the whole house. Under the bed, shoe boxes, under the floor, floorboards, ceiling. They'll look everywhere except for in the books. Yeah. They hide money and all kind of stuff. Papers, money, and they hide in the books. Because they know. Nobody, them books going to be right on the floor still. When they come in and tear up your house and all that, they're going to pick up the book. The money's still going to be right there in the books. They knew it. They know it. And it's like we phased out of that a little bit, but we phasing right on back into that. You know, we phasing right on back into that because otherwise, for me, it was like, I was like, yo, how did we miss this? Literally, our cells are made with filaments. I was like, hey, nope. Does nobody know what the word filament means? I'm like, okay, you know, in a light bulb, there's a filament, right? And so the electricity goes through the light bulb and then it lights up. It's the filament is what lights up. Yeah, the filament. You know that? Yeah, so our cells have filaments. I was like, what are we doing? The language is right there, right? Inside of our vessels, there's alumina, right? I was like, am I alone? I'm like, this is low hanging fruit. Like this is just I'm like, yeah. So, you know, it just, you know, got crazier and crazier, just looking up, you know, figuring some stuff out. I'm like, yo, this is all right here. So starting with this book on page 21, on page 20, Human Engineering, right? On page 20, the chapter on human engineering is where we first start our discussion that has grown to where we are now, the new book series, right? We go human engineering, electrical circuit, a closed, so we define what an electrical circuit is, right? And I realized that nobody understood what an electrical circuit was, even though we have little experiments where we make light bulbs light up from lemons and salt water and we do little stuff. Nobody actually actualized the understanding because people were debating over Dr. Sebi. And this is how I had to sit KT down and teach KT, right? So this is why most people's early videos of KT, not even most, everybody's early videos of KT, the arch degree, is on my channels. Me, I bring him out. That's like my artist. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm teaching him like, no, this is that, right? There's no separating acid from alkaline. The whole purpose of alkaline is to feed an acid-based structure. Acid requires electrons. Alkalines or bases donate electrons. So the reason why we get energy from is because we're completing a circuit. We're completing a circuit, a biological circuit. Right? So a base or an alkaline is going to donate electrons and accept protons. On the flip side, an acid is going to accept electrons and donate protons. So while The acid is donating protons to the base is donating electrons to the acid, while the acid is donating protons to the base, that's a circuit. That's an electric circuit. So immediately I'm able to see, because I didn't start with holistic, gobbledygook. I started with the science, and then I got into the kundalinis and tantras and all these other different ideas. Right. So I'm starting right there. You know what I'm saying? So over the years, my basic ideas just, I just was able to learn, and build on top of it. So here we start with defining an electrical circuit, a closed loop electrical network that has a return path for its current. This network must contain active electronic components that can compute, transfer data, and perform signal, power, or data amplification. Circuit training is actually the best form of workout outside of isometrics and calisthenics. Circuit training with blended aspects of high-intensity interval training, especially for fast twitch dominant folks. This should be becoming obvious to you now. To simplify what circuit training is, you don't take any breaks. You move directly from one set to the next. And after you do all the exercises you have in your routine, you may rest 1 to 3 minutes and then you begin again. It infuses cardio into your program very masterfully, and you increase your body heat with a hoodie. You're at the GOAT level. Just make sure you're hydrating and adding the appropriate levels of mama atomics in. And then from there, we start going into the components. Now, some people will go, how you go from what an electronic circuit is to circuit training? Well, and look, I'm learning, right? I'm learning, but what I was implying, some people got it, some people didn't. I got learned, I'm learning to be a better communicator over time as I do this, right? But as I'm discussing or laying out what an electrical circuit is, now I'm jumping into how you fine tune yours, right? Because that's what's happening. That's what endurance is. So when we talk about, lactic acid and blah, 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 and all these different things, carbon dioxide building up, and it's because of the core, it's because of the electrical activity, right? So that's the core of what's happening. Electricity is being cycled to recycle light, right? So you're using electricity to recycle light. That's what's happening over and over. You're using electricity to recycle light. Right now, everything else is just a part of that system, right? You breaking down fatty acids or glucose and, tricarboxylic acid cycle, cytochrome 1, cytochrome 2, electron transport. All of that conversation is just so that you understand how your body is able to funnel electrons to move around protons, right? Funneling electrons to move around protons to recycle ATP so that you can keep getting that light and that mechanical. You get both from hydrolyzing or oxidizing ATP, right? You get mechanical waves, pressure waves, right? And then you also get light, right? Both of them are released in the exothermic reaction that happens, right? So you get light and sound. the very thing that our religious books say the universe started with. Like, you literally get light and sound. Like the Big Bang thing is happening zillions of times per moment in your cells, and that's what powers your cells. So on the next page, we start our list, right? Basic electronic circuit components. Resistor. A resistor slows down current or signals. Transistor, the opposite of a resistor. Transistors are semiconductors that control and amplify signals of current. Lumen, the standard unit of luminous flux, to the amount of light emitted per second, or hollow structures in vessels and cells. Filament, a slender thread-like object or fiber, especially one found in animal or plant structures, or a conducting wire or thread with a high melting point, forming part of an electric bulb or vacuum tube and heated or made incandescent by an electric current. Now, some people, that might sound like a lot, like boom, bam, boom, bam, bam, boom, bam. But in my mind, I was like, wait, what? What? Because before I even was hip to all of the filaments that's in regular cells, I knew that your muscles was made out of filaments. Like, that was the first thing I learned, like, about muscles. I was like, okay, so yeah, the muscle fiber is filament. So in my mind, immediately, I'm like, oh, so muscle fibers light up? I'm like, wait, muscle fiber? I'm like, did I just discover the truth to the ancient Egyptian? I'm like, what? They told me I was bugging with this light body, Osiris, Horus, foolishness. You know what I'm saying? Like, you bugging. Like, that ain't. I'm like, hold up. Y'all in trouble now, because I got the textbooks. Yeah, y'all in trouble now, because I done found filaments. It's up. It's on site at this point. I done found filaments. Oh, we back to light body conversation now. We back. we back. Right? So, but this is before even my very first book. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm having a lot of this exploration early, 90s, before I even started to writing stuff down and getting it out there. Right? Transformer and transducer transforms one type of energy to another, increasing or reducing the voltage. Transformers can also share energy from one circuit to one or more others. Capacitors. A capacitor stores charge using parallel or close surfaces, insulated from one another. Inductor or reactor. This is a very popular design in human engineering. A coil that stores energy in a magnetic field as electricity runs through it. Usually consists of coiled insulated wire. A diode, a semiconductor with two terminals that allow current or signals to flow in only one direction. A thermoionic tube having two electrodes. Keep in mind the basic design of the spine and its radio wave nature, nerve supply, its connection to the aorta, its active marrow, and its piezoelectric. The spine is a real work of art. Anode, positively charged electrode by which electrons leave a device, or the negatively charged electrode of a device supplying current, such as the primary cell. Cathode, the negatively charged electrode by which electrons enter a device, or a positively charged electrode of a device supplying current, such as the primary. Notice that all of the Nobel Prize winners base theories of health and wellness on oxygen supply to the tissues. It's because oxygen brings electricity, magnetism, and light with it. Let there be light. Let's start here with Hatorah, right? And then we go into something. We get in our bag there, right? And then page 24 starts heart to heart, right? Hey, so this book right here winds up. This is like the classic. This is like the classic of where we at with it now, right? Because even now, right, we done went a lot. We done went crazy, right? Because at this point, At this point, we done went crazy. Right? At this point, we done went crazy. We done mapped this whole thing out. Even you know, interactions, and like we done went crazy with this already at this point. Right? We done went nuts. Right? We have totally went down the rabbit hole and totally, you know, we done reinvented. Right? We done went crazy with this thing. Right? We done went crazy with this thing. Right? We done went crazy with this thing. Yeah. We done went crazy with this thing already. Yeah, we done went nuts.
This is the Bible of the ElectroGenic cell. It's not just the best book ever written on the subject, it's the only book ever written on this subject. Brought to you by supporters of Christ.
So we done went to a whole nother space though. Even from those descriptions, we done went, you know, like we took this thing to a whole nother level. And that's kind of why we started the discussion where we did the other day with health conversations versus God conversations. Because it's funny that we're having these conversations about Alzheimer's and dementia and all that, because as a culture, we're suffering from short memory. As a culture, we're suffering from short memory. We don't realize that just 5 minutes ago, right? In the grand scheme of things, just 5 minutes ago, the church controlled everything. So what we have now, science-wise, even still, a lot of these church ideas are still pervasive, right? So this whole idea that we are cursed from birth, right? That's a church idea. That's a church idea. That's not even a Bible idea, really. That's more of a church, you know, concepts that the church, the Greco-Romans developed. But, you know, and science had to be compliant or they would cut your head off, burn your body in public. Like it was, yeah, it was different. You know what I'm saying? Like, so we still have those concepts, right? So as I'm building and I'm going through the Kemetic, the true and living science books, as I'm going through, and we get to Kemetic naturopathy. And we get to Kemetic naturopathy, like we just blasted off like a rocket ship. Like we went so far and so fast. I didn't even imagine how fast and far we was going to go with that, right? how fast and far we're still going with that. You know what I'm saying? Like, because the first book of Rich Abs and Poor Abs is Comedic Naturopathy. So that you understand this Rich and Poor series as an offshoot under the umbrella of Comedic Naturopathy. All right. So you don't get it twisted. Like LeBron said, keep the main thing the main thing. So we still keeping the main thing the main thing. But the one thing I realized going through the Comedic Naturopathy series is that there's a learning disability that we have, and it's because at some point we all share certain programming. We all share certain programming with concepts like inflammation, right? So inflammation, to be inflamed, right? Think about that. To be inflamed, right? To be inflamed, right? You're going through hell, like to be inflamed, right? And so these words just sitting right there in front of us. I was like, where did we get these concepts? So once you get it into your mind, right? Because it's hard to do it. It's hard to get information down to your genetic, down into your DNA, like into your blood. Even if you play with information on the surface level, you can tell if a person has really metabolized it by what they do instinctually and in emergency situations. You know what I'm saying? Like, what do you really do? Like, in an emergency situation, do you go to the Bible or the hospital? Just asking. It's not you know what you do. You know what I'm saying? Like, so who do you really believe in? Right? God, Jesus, Moses, or Dr. such and such at the, with the white jacket, with the guy with the white jacket, the lab coat on, like who, what institution do you put is it Allah or is it, like, and I'm not trying to make any choices, whatever, but I'm just saying, like, we have programming that drives our decision making and how we socialize and how we do things. And so I realized from having certain conversations, and as a teacher, sometimes I fall victim to saying things that I shouldn't, right? And I have somebody that calls me up from time to time and says, Inky, you should try not to say this and that and blah, blah, blah. And, I appreciate, when I get those calls, because, it's only a handful of people that really understand the power of words. It's hard enough to get people to read, let alone to understand how a word can impact your psychology or be transformative, like just totally transform the way you see the world. So, but you have to meet people where they are in order to teach. And so there's a dichotomy, you wind up in a conundrum where, so prime example, right? Prime example. You will have folks that will argue with me about something relative to Dr. Sebi, maybe a food off the food list or protein or melanin or something like that, whatever, some trivial, right? They'll be ready to defend Dr. Sebi's versus Dr. Inky, whatever, right? Even though I'm Dr. Sebi's greatest warrior, you know what I'm saying? Like, but these same people will go get a gym membership, hire a personal trainer, and work on burning fat. I'm like, how you How you following Sabi and you going to burn fat? How you doing that? How are you doing that? That don't even make no sense. But after a while, I realized, I'm like, people haven't internalized the information yet. Nobody knows. It's just, I'm in an echo chamber. I'm doing this research 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So it's real for me. But I realize it's not real for the world yet. It's not real for the world. It's not even real for most of the people that watch my channel all the time. Because they're still talking about burning fat and, you know, these concepts of burning and combustion, right? And idea of fire and all of this kind of stuff. And there's no fire. There's no fire, right? But that's a basic core mistake with the understanding of our anatomy. And so we can't even make the jump. We can't even make the jump if our core programming says that we burn fuel, right? Like I was listening to this interview. Listen to this.
You burn brain cells, you get thoughts. You burn brain cells, you get thoughts. You burn brain cells, you get thoughts.
You burn brain cells and get thoughts. I was like, what? And when he said that on the interview, the platform, you know, they was like he was breaking something down. And people in the chat was putting up fire emojis. I was like, yo, mind blown. They put mind blown emojis. I'm like, oh my God. And RZA's supposed to be like leading, you know, urban black intelligence and culture. I'm like, he talking about burning brain cells. I'm like, work with me, God. Come on now. work with me, God. Come on now. Why you put RZA on TV to tell 1 million people he burning brain cells to get thoughts? Why? What do we? I said, why you?
You burn brain cells, you get thoughts.
You wouldn't have no brain. If you burned a brain cell to get thoughts, you wouldn't have no brain. This is like the dumbest. I love the RZA. I'm a fan of Wu-Tang. That's how I was watching like, you know, but literally. And so let me not even say one of the dumbest things a person could possibly say, but it just shows we don't have the education on it. Right? This is why in the books, the bioelectricity book, right? We finished out the comedic, we finished out the True and Living Comedic Science series with a bang, right? The Comedicine book, the bioelectricity book, the dope game book, the memory bank book. Like we went crazy, right? And made sure that we detailed that, you know, your main 3 types of muscle fibers, right? 2,500 mitochondria per cell, give or take, in slow twitch, maybe 1,000 or something like that, in intermediate, less than 300, couple hundred in fast twitch, right? So that we would get, you know, the actual science. And then make the distinction between muscle cells, right, driven by the amount of mitochondria that's in them, and nerves and neurons, or brain cells, right? Brain cells have 2 million or more mitochondria in them. So your muscle, and when I say your muscle, I'm talking about the biggest, Chris Bumstead, Ronnie, the biggest muscle guys on the internet. Their muscle cells have a few thousand mitochondria in them. But your brain cells have a few million. So there's no burning. It's a very electrical process, right? And we went over that process in the books. Even in this book, Even in this same classic book right here, the very first electrician's manual. That's what the whole idea of electrician is. Not healer, but electrician. Because in order to really be a healer, you have to see that your body's basic, right? The basic part of your body is electricity, coupled to magnetism, producing light, right? So it's electricity, magnetism, light, right? So in order to really understand the body, we need electrician manuals, right? So in this very first electrician manual, we have that conversation, right? Let's stay with the neurons. Negative 70 millivolts at rest and positive 40 at work. In ancient Egypt, they recognized very early that sodium or salt had a special relationship with the human body. Water and electricity are led by sodium. Sodium and its partner in crime, potassium. Potassium on the inside of the cell body potentiates the negative 70 millivolt charge, and when the gates of the cell are open, sodium is funneled in and potassium is released. Sodium makes the cell jump to action as the inside of the cell where all the sodium is now positive 40 millivolts compared to the outside of the cell. It's negative 70 millivolts compared to the outside of the cell at rest and positive 40 millivolts compared to the outside of the cell at work. Review the times table question and answer number 10. All right, so if you know the times table is from the algorithm book. All right, the times table is from the algorithm book, but the answers are from, so the questions are in the algorithm book, and then the answers are in the GOAT book. I always have some fresh copies of this. There's certain books I have to have fresh copies that I destroy because I'm in these books all the time. But then I have to have fresh copies. Right? And the answer for number 10 is on page 29. And it says the conversion of fruit sugar into phosphorus is amazing, but we know that Egypt regarded sodium as divine. Does sodium or natrum fit into these cycles? If yes, what is the numerical relationship, if any? Right? So the answer poses another question. And then we go to question 11. And the answer for question number 11 is Osiris is the god of the land of the dead, which was divided in 12. If the blood of Osiris is fermented fruit sugar, what is the numerical relationship, if any? Right? So the question these are the questions and the answers are in the algorithm book. Right, backwards. But this is how we break down, right? How we break down the research as we've been doing it over time, right? To the point where now, I'm still looking to see if I see it. Okay, wait, that's divine mathematics. So I feel like it's close. Because those two books is usually always together. No, but they're not. Divine mathematics is not with its partner. They should be together though. But anyway, yeah. we go through all of this stuff, you know what I'm saying? So now we then got to the point where after we done mapped out a good bit of the body, right? After we done mapped out a good bit of the body, now we got to go back and deal with the doctrine, right? And when I say the doctrine, I mean the indoctrination and re-indoctrinate, right? So we have to come off of the concept of burning fuel. We don't burn sugars, we don't burn fats, right? We have to come off of that. We have to give that concept back, right? We cannot go forward without giving that back, right? We have to give that back, right? We have to give that back. We cannot understand the body going. We can't understand the light, the electric, the magnet. We can't understand any of that until we give that part back. We have to let that go. We can't operate in both spaces, right? We can't have the basic fundamental programming that we're burning calories and we're burning fat and we're burning sugar and combustion is taking place inside the cell. We can't have those concepts and then also still try to, on top of that, right? That's why when the young man that was trying to debate me, you know, Alkaline City, that's why I found him so comical. That's why I found him so comical, because he was trying to put electric philosophy on top of burn culture. He was trying to put one on top of the other. He's like, yeah, and so the cells do combustion, and the combustion takes place in the mitochondria. Even now, when I say it, it's still funny. Like, it sounds like the most ignorant, like, it's just crazy. It just sounds like the most ridiculous gobbledygook of all time to me. But that's because my ear is trained. So I have to realize and work on me. Like, everybody's ear is not trained. They don't hear that the same way. Some people, it sounds like science to them. Some people, it sounds intelligible, intelligent, you know, like he's saying something that they should listen to. And, you know, that lets me know our work is cut out for us, right? Because people are mixing oil and water. And this is the reason why in this country, you know, RFK has just released the biggest bombshell of all times in written history. The single fact, that one fact, and I'm going to repeat it until people get it. The one fact that we spend the most money on health, every level, and we have the sickest country. That's the craziest thing on earth. Like, people know that we have the highest, the most potent herbs, and like they know we have the most potent, but they'll get mad with me for shipping late and then go buy something else somewhere else and think they getting revenge on me. So you putting a lower quality substance in your body is getting revenge on me. That's the dumbest. That's not how we should do that, right? You still want the best, and like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Right? But you know, so like, we can't operate in both spaces. So one of the things we did, and this is in the codex. So let me show you this, what we did in the codex. This is what we did in the codex. Also, okay, so this is the first thing we did. Well, not the first thing, but this is one of the things that we did. right? So we have our own white papers, right? And we go through the doctrine of ElectroGenesis, right? We go through the doctrine of ElectroGenesis, right? With the purpose. Ending premature death and metabolic illness through the culture of the talented conductors. A thesis submitted to the Temple of the Body Institute for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in Human Metabolism and Cultural Religion by Pastor Rich Abbs, right? So obviously that's a pseudonym I developed, right? The characters developed themselves, right? Because in the first book, Poor Abs and Rich Abs is just really about me and me operating at my best and me operating at my worst. And so in telling those stories, we realized that we connected with people in a way that we didn't connect with the information. Like there's one way that we connect with the information, but then there's another way you connect when people can realize like, oh, wait a minute. So you're a milkshake? Wait, so you're a milkshake guy? You a cookies? You struggling with cookie abuse? You know, like crackheads or dope fiends, like you so you struggling with you know, like opioid abuse. So you struggling with snack cake abuse? Are you know, I'm one of those guys. I'm a reformed mayonnaise, you know, mayonnaise. Yeah, I'm a mayonnaise alcoholic, you know, but I'm one of those ranch. I'm a surviving ranch, ranch drench. I'm from Drench Ranch, you know, half a bottle of ketchup, you know, homemade Kool-Aid in the neighborhood, you know, half a bag of Domino's. I've been through, yeah. I'm from all of those spaces. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was in high school chain smoking cigarettes. In high school, I chain smoked cigarettes. You know what I'm saying? So I'm still, no matter what I'm teaching or doing, like I'm still recovering from some of the abuse that I put my body through when I was younger. And, you know, some of my stuff. So that's why I always say I'm working on me. Right? That's what has driven the research. That's what put me on this road to figuring out, like, wait a minute. Yeah, this is happening to me. You know, this I'm falling into the well-worn path that leads to the very things that we say, you know, oh, the diabetes and this, the heart attack. I'm well on my way. Yeah. I'm well on my way. I'm working on that. And so I did a lecture one time. I had a car accident, right? And it's crazy because the car accident was on my birthday, right? But I had a lecture planned for that day at Black and Nobel, right? And I don't play with the teaching thing because the teaching thing is from God. So literally, I leave the hospital and go straight to the bookstore to do my lecture. I got glass I'm picking glass out of my forehead in front of the room, like at the lecture. I got the hospital, the hospital band on. Like I'm picking glass out of my forehead. You know what I'm saying? Like, and people were like, yo, how did you walk out of that? How did you walk out of that car accident? Like you got into the car totaled. They're like, yo, there should be no survivors of that accident. How did you walk out of that? I was like, because I was walking here. They're like, yeah, but no. People not even supposed to survive that. How do you survive that to a lecture? I'm like, for me, your question is the answer. God has a purpose for me. So because I do these things, this is why when that happens, like this is how that goes. Yeah, so I won't come out of that and then go, oh man, it's my birthday. I just had a car accident. I should go smoke, or I should go drink, or I should just go chill with the family. I'm like, no. I need to go do that lecture. Right? I need to go do that lecture. And when we did that day, I was talking about people earning disease, like working on it, because we don't really learn how to work on things in our lives that have value. Like we don't learn how to work on things, take our time and just slowly build a thing that we want to have. Right. And then fight for it to keep it, like work on it, slowly building it and then having it. And, like we don't do that in our culture. We don't teach our kids this microwave culture. Right now, let's get, put it in the microwave. Like that's, so I'm like, you don't realize that people don't get lung cancer from smoking a cigarette. If people got lung cancer from smoking one cigarette, there'll be no cigarette business. And almost everybody be dead. Like that's not how that goes. You got to be consistent with smoking cigarettes. You got to invest a lot of time and money into cigarettes to get your lung cancer. Yeah, when you get your lung cancer, that's supposed to be like a reward. Like you earned that. You did your thing. You killed them. Like that's like LeBron raising the MVP. When you get that lung cancer, you got to raise that lung. You got to be out there like, I did that. Yeah. You know how many packs of cigarettes I had to invest into creating this cancer and then feeding it and growing it? Yeah. You don't just run through a bag of Oreos and those 5, 6 little Hostess Twink. You just don't get obese like bam over. Nah, it's a lot of time and energy and money you gotta invest into sedentary lifestyle and sloth and gluttony and there's a lot of time and money you have to invest into it for it to pay off. And then you get the payoff. You get diabetes, or your heart just, yeah. But it never doesn't just happen. You don't just drink a beer and then all of a sudden your liver failed. Nah, it's a lot of 6 packs. A lot of bottles, a lot of bottles. It's a lot of bottles before that liver go, I can't. Yeah. So it's, we got to learn the fruit of our labor, right? We got to learn the fruit of our labor, our legacy, because we're working on things every day. We just don't realize what we're working on. That's why I say, you got to spend time paying attention, balancing your interests to earn respect, right? Respect for your body is appreciation. In real estate school, I learned appreciation meant when your real estate increased in value. So understanding that God blew the breath of life into the soil, the divine soil that became a living soul that eventually is me. I understand that this flesh is real estate. This is my real estate. This is my real estate. Right? So in order for it to increase in value, I have to appreciate it. Well, how do you appreciate it? You have to spend time paying attention, study, right? Getting the books, reading, learning, spend time paying attention, balancing your interests. Because it's not one cigarette that's going to kill you. It's not one Black and Mild that's going to, it's not a cupcake. It's not a slice of pizza. All right. No matter what you put on it. You know what I'm saying? You can have pepperoni. It's not, you're not going to have there's no Muslim out there that's going to eat one piece of pork and then drop dead. There's no Muslim that's going to drop dead from a slice of bacon. Like that's not it. Is cumulative effect, which is the reason why, eventually we had to get into this, right? Eventually we had to get into the math and probability, right? Because is it this way? Yes, it should be right here on your screen. Right? But eventually we had to get into the probability because that's where the information is you're going to a payoff, right? right? And it's variables. The longer you're consistent with a thing, right? Observation, you observe, the longer you're observing a set of rituals, the more you're bringing to fruition, right? Fruition, right? A specific, Now, the crazy thing is we've been taught how to manifest all of the wrong things in life, right? But that root, the roots of that starts with us not understanding. So people get into manifestation, law of attraction, all these different things. You don't even know how your body works. How are you trying to manifest health and wellness and you don't know how you going to burn fat? Really? Burn fat. Listen, let me explain this to you. Burn fat, right? To burn fat, to burn sugar, right? Listen to this. I want y'all to get this. To burn fat, to burn sugar, to burn anything in the human body means what? To create inflammation. Period. There is no sort of healthy burning ever at all. There's no good burning. Doesn't matter what, I'm burning toxins out. Yeah, I'm going into a sweat lodge so I could burn out these toxins. What toxins you burning? That's not even chemically sound. You're not burning chemicals, bro. Where you think you at? What you think you got a hadron collider? Like what do you think you got going on over there? And so if I pick apart the language, right, there's a space where we go, oh, and you just nitpicking. You just nitpicking, right? But
This is the Bible of the ElectroGenic cell. It's not just the best book ever written on the subject, it's the only book ever written on this subject. Brought to you by supporters of Christ.
right? So we got to get this basic part down. And it requires repetition. It requires repetition. So if it seems like over the last couple of weeks or even the next couple of weeks, I repeat things, well, that's the opposite of me going fast. Because some people say, Inky, you going so fast through the information. But then when I slow down and start to repeat things over there, like, Inky, come on, you said that. Repetition. Repetition builds the neural networks, and we have to ingrain this. We got to get the basic part down, right? The basic part, the breaking down of glucose and fatty acids, right? Protein doesn't do this, right? The breaking down of glucose and fatty acids for NAD and FAD to be able to harness the electrons, right? Harness the electrons. So that means look what our body's doing, right? Look what our body's doing. We're breaking things down all the way to past atoms. So every time you eat, it's a quantum action. Right? I hate that I even have to use these terms, but every time it's a quantum thing, right? Because you're taking, a food is a big, it's like millions and millions and millions, millions on top of millions of atoms together. Then you eat, you breaking it down into compounds and molecules. Compounds and molecules are, dozens, maybe dozens of atoms, maybe hundreds, right? But as you continue to move through the digestive system, right, you're breaking things all the way down to the point where when you get to the tricarboxylic acid cycle, right, now you're going all the way subatomic. You're breaking things all the way down past atomic level, right? Past the atomic level. You're dealing with electrons and protons, the individual units that make up atoms, right? So you're going all the way down, right? You're going all the way down to a space where only the forces of electricity, magnetism, and light even matter, right? Oh, that's a bar. Electricity and light even matter. That's a bar right there. Pun intended. That was a bar right there, right? But so you getting down to this space, right? So when you get down to this space, only forces exist there, which is why our ancestors used the terms like Elohim or the Necharu, right, to describe these forces, right? Because there's no physical form in the world of pure energy, right? And so when they were talking about conscious forces, right, that got muddled, over the centuries, that turned into gobbledygook as people tried to debunk it. But when you get to the Geneva Convention and the Manhattan Project, and when you get to, even before you get to Maxwell and Max Planck and 1800s going into the early 1900s, as they start to discover the conscious or coherent. So coherent, when they use the term coherent, they're speaking of intelligence, just in case you don't know, right? But they don't want to say intelligence because this is a scientific culture that's built on top of agnosticism and atheism. So instead of them using the term intelligence, they'll use the word coherent. That keeps most of the people at bay, right? But coherent means structure, unity, harmony, organization. That comes with intelligence, right? So information, right? Adding information into the system, right? So late 1800s, early 1900s, they started to realize that subatomic particles under certain conditions were organized, and not organized from an outside force, but they had an intrinsic order in how they were moving and how they worked with one another. And so they start calling this a level of coherency that mirrors some archaic or ancient form of intelligence. And, so these are the type of terms that are written in the original science papers, right? So now at that point, as I'm reading through these papers, my mind is going all the way back to the ancient, like this is what they said 4,000-5,000 years ago. Like, this is what they said, that this energy, but this conscious energy. Yeah, so this conscious energy, I'm saying this is the same thing this is the same thing right here. This is the same thing right here. Like this is, so we've made like a 4,000 or 5,000 year circle, right? Which is why in Kemet they had two forms of time, linear and circular, cyclical, right? Because usually linear time is a projection of you looking outward at the world. But if you step outside yourself and you put yourself in the system and you look at the world at large, you don't see linear, you see cyclical, right? So when you are a part of the many, it's a cycle, you realize. But when you looking from your individual state, separated from everything else, you see a linear progression, where once you merge yourself and you include yourself in the rest of what's going on here, right? When you function more as the wave, right? It's a cycle. When you function from the particle perspective, things are linear, right? So at any moment in time is linear progression. And like, oh no, we're studying and we're getting better and we're learning and blah, 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 blah. If you step outside of that time scale, moving from the Renaissance period to the early 1900s, you move outside that, you look at a longer time scale and you go back to the weighing of the heart ceremony, you go that far back, you go, oh no. We just made a loop because they already had defined a wide variety of conscious or coherent energy systems that created and continue to create, sustain, and maintain the world we live in. Right. So that's not a discovery, that's a rediscovery. Right? That's a rediscovery. So what we did, fast forward, like with this paper here, we are redesigning, so even if I use a pseudonym, right, with the conversation, the concept, right? Ending premature death and metabolic illness through the culture of the talented conductors. Premature death from metabolic illness is a modern tragedy of cultural, spiritual, and biological dimensions. Cardiovascular disease, obesity, type 2 diabetes, and related disorders account for millions of preventable deaths annually worldwide. The scientific community has developed a wide range of nutritional and pharmacological interventions, yet long-term success remains elusive. Now, don't pay no attention to this. When you see this, the book is not 1,200 pages. The book is only 700 and something pages, right? The book is only 700 and something pages, but in my original format here is 1,200, right? Anyway, most approaches lack the cultural, ethical, and spiritual cohesion necessary to sustain behavioral change over time. This thesis presents a new model, the doctrine of ElectroGenesis, as embodied by the religious scientific community of the talented conductors. This approach combines advanced understanding of mitochondrial metabolism with a deep spiritual framework centered on energy flow through the human body. At its core, the doctrine of ElectroGenesis teaches that metabolism is not a process of burning calories, but a sacred process of matter to current to light to spirit. When this cycle is maintained with reverence, metabolic illness is reversed and premature death is avoided. The talented conductors lived this doctrine through a vegan diet focused on pigment and fiber, maximizing electron availability and gut function. Ritualized daily movement, the 60 and 60 work, which fosters mitochondrial density and cardiac coherence. The RACES protocol, rich abs, caloric electrification system, aligning intake and output as a spiritual practice. Communal identity as talented conductors who honor the flow of energy through their lives. Drawing from scientific literature on mitochondrial bioenergetics, metabolic flexibility, cardiac physiology, and religious anthropology, as well as case studies from within the community, this thesis argues that the talented conductors model represents a viable cultural solution to the crisis of metabolic illness. Every jewel is a jewel. The cycle is one. Conduct brilliantly. God is music. Right? So this is the abstract. Right? This is the abstract. So when you see me throwing up clips, right? And the clips, we got the little stories. I don't know if y'all seen all of my little stories. Hold on. Let me find one of these little stories. Because I want y'all to understand, this is from the same book. right? I want y'all to understand this is from the same book. I don't want y'all to be like, you know, like this is, it's not, Dr. Inky has not become Dr. Seuss, right? This is still Jed school, right? Here goes one. Hold on. This is a short one. Hold on. Let's just do number one.
This is a particular system, the gospel of Rich and Poe. Getting back to the source and the plug. This is a particular system of faith and worship, a beautiful system of longevity, veiled in science and illustrated through spirituality. Inhalation is inspiration because God is in electromagnetic radiation. How rich Abs saved poor Abs and found his calling. Verse 1, the collapse. Poor Abs was dying. Not in the way hospitals could detect, but in the slower, silent way. His breath was shallow. His heart stuttered between bites. His soul was numb beneath the cheese dust in commercials. He lived in a recliner like it was a coffin with cup holders. Every day the couch claimed another rep of his life. He had heard of rich abs, a myth, a meme, a man sculpted by sweat, sculpted by the sun, the one they called the living temple. But poor Abs had never seen him in person until the night he passed out from microwaving 6 hot dogs at once.
Right? So I'm just saying, I want y'all to understand that these little short stories are in the same book as, you know. These, I don't want you to think that that's all that's in these books. Like, no. We go into it. Like, these are the most scientifically dense. These books are the most scientifically dense books that I have ever written. Right? So as I'm going through the abstract, like, understand that story and this paper that I'm reading are in the same book.
This is the Bible of the ElectroGenic cell. It's not just the best book ever written on the subject, it's the only book ever written on this subject. Brought to you by supporters of Christ.
Right? So we go through, right? The crisis of premature death. Premature death from metabolic illness is not an inevitable outcome of human biology. Rather, it is a profound failure of modern culture, a rupture in how humans relate to energy, matter, movement, and meaning. Across the globe, rates of cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, obesity, and related metabolic syndromes are rising dramatically. According to the World Health Organization's Global Status Report on Non-Communicable Diseases of 2024, cardiovascular disease alone claims 17.9 million lives annually, while complications from diabetes contribute to an additional 1.5 million deaths. These numbers continue to rise despite increased access to pharmaceutical interventions and public health messaging. What accounts for this failure? In part, It is due to a culture that views the human body as a machine to be manipulated rather than as a living conductor of spirit and current. The dominant metaphor of metabolism as burning calories promotes a crude understanding of energy transformation devoid of reverence or nuance. Right? Now, this term right here, I know this is very important for me, right? Because this is a part of my Trinity, right? My Trinity model, right? And we went into it in the bioelectricity book, and we touched on it in the medicine book and the dopamine book, and we went even harder into in the memory bank book, right? We really dug in, right? But energy is the ability to do work. So you have energy to work. You have energy to work. It's the ability to do. So if you're not going to work, you don't need the energy. If you're consuming energy and you're not doing the work, disease comes. Like, that's because you're breaking the natural. That's not how it goes, right? The energy is created. If we start with the roots of photosynthesis, right? Stored in light, right? The water is using the carbon to capture light, so we can use that light, that information, that energy to work, right? But the term work becomes an ambiguous term. So what does work mean? Energy cannot be created or destroyed, right? So the idea of working is basically just transforming energy from one form to another, right? Even if you just simplify it from potential energy to kinetic energy, it's just transforming energy from one form to another. But when you do that, you also create information, right? So this is the relationship on a more visible level of electricity to magnetism, right? So that's why they're always coupled together, because every time you're transforming, you're creating information, which is stored in a magnetic field. That's the natural medium of storing information, right? So when you have a moving electric field or a device of transforming energy, now you also simultaneously have a device for storing that energy. And that thing which comes out of the two of those things is light, right? So we're going as far as we can in these books, right? With how we're looking. So that's why we have to approach it both ways, right? We have to approach it both ways, as gentle as we can and then as rough as we can. So in the same place as we're telling little stories and narratives to drive home the information in a different way, we're also like, we're getting busy with the get busy, right? We're getting as busy as, right? So in this model, food is reduced to fuel, movement to mechanical output, and the body to a furnace whose only goal is efficiency. This reductionist perspective fosters disconnection. Food is consumed mindlessly, movement is avoided, and metabolic flexibility deteriorates. Over time, the body's natural capacity for clean electrogenesis collapses under the weight of unspent energy, leading to stagnant current, fat accumulation, and disease. The doctrine of electrogenesis, this thesis, presents a new paradigm, one that bridges scientific insight with spiritual understanding. The doctrine of electrogenesis holds that the human body is not a furnace, but a living circuit. The purpose of metabolism is not to burn, but to conduct, to transform matter into bioelectrical current, current into radiant light, and light into elevated spirit. I'm going to read that again. The doctrine of ElectroGenesis holds that the human body is not a furnace, but a living circuit. The purpose of metabolism is not to burn, but to conduct, to transform matter into bioelectrical current, current into radiant light, and light into elevated spirit. When this cycle is honored, mitochondrial function remains robust. Energy intake is aligned with output, right? People say, well, Inky, what's the best diet, or how much protein I need, or how much fats I'm supposed to get? I don't know what your lifestyle is every day. So if anybody's giving you a general answer, they're just trying to point you in a direction, or they're just making it up. But each person's lifestyle is different. So how you fuel your body should be different, because it should match your lifestyle, right? But sometimes people get frustrated when I give them answers like that, right? Sometimes people get frustrated when I give them answers like that. And they say, oh, well, maybe he don't know, or maybe he, you know what? No, you just, the indoctrination is kicking in, and you're watching them platforms. And you go, oh, they got 1 million views. Okay, but let me, and they're saying, Enki, this guy said I should have 1.8 grams of protein per kilogram of so I could maintain my anabolic. I'm like, there's a universe where that's true for some people, you know. Unfortunately, you're not one of those people, but there is a universe where that is applicable, right? Energy intake is when the cycle is honored, mitochondrial function remains robust. Energy intake is aligned with output. Movement becomes sacramental. The body radiates vitality, resilience, and joy. When the cycle is broken, metabolic illness emerges. The talented conductors are a living community devoted to this cycle. Founded within the temple of the body by Pastor Rich Abbs, the conductors practice a holistic model of metabolic health centered on a vegan diet high in pigment and fiber to optimize electron flow and gut health. The 60 and 60 work, a daily ritual of 60 push-ups in 60 seconds, fostering mitochondrial density and cardiac coherence. The RACES protocol, Rich Abbs caloric electrification system, ensuring dynamic balance between intake and output. A sacred identity as talented conductors who embody the cycle. The cultural practices represent a unique integration of advanced bioenergetics and spiritual discipline with significant implications for public health. Thesis overview. This thesis will present the scientific foundation of ElectroGenesis. Examine the cultural and religious practices of the talented conductors. Offer case studies and observed outcomes. Argue for the broader application of this model to end premature death from metabolic illness. The goal is not merely to propose another diet or exercise program, but to restore a sacred relationship between energy, body, and spirit. Every jewel is a jewel. The cycle is one. Conduct brilliantly. God is music.
This is the Bible of the electrogenic cell. It's not just the best book ever written on the subject, it's the only book ever written on this subject. Brought to you by supporters of Christ.
This is why you have to go to Amazon and get the book, Rich Abs, Poor Abs, now.
Nike prayer number 2. We give thanks and praise to the Most High God for the divine spark that set our cells into perpetual motion. We give thanks for the magnetism of the Most Holy, the magnetism that repels and attracts the ferry boats of light 60,000 miles every 60 seconds throughout our vessels and caves. We give thanks for the ability to drink clean water every 60 minutes, flooding the river of life. We give thanks that sugar has not covered our ferries and turned them into stone. We give thanks that darkness has not covered the riverbanks with calcium and turned them into stone. We give thanks that anger and fear have not turned our almonds bitter, turning our heart to stone. We give thanks for smooth sailing upstream through the valley of death, through the superior vena cava into the right atrium. We give thanks for smooth sailing around the heart through the corona crown, joining the vortex in the right atrium. We give thanks for the perfect black solar repeater that induces the primary electromagnetic wave, opening the mouth of the Kodesh HaKodeshim. We give thanks for the mechanical wave produced when the mouth of the Kodesh HaKodeshim closes. We give thanks to the ray wave, reflecting on the semi-lunar valves, opening a pathway to the vineyard. We give thanks for the mechanical wave produced when the lunar gate to the vineyard closes. We give thanks to the Most High God that provides the light and our breath, and the light in our breath. We give thanks for the fine olfactory system that makes our grapes ripe with light. We give thanks for the Jed pillar that provides us with a stable fleet of ferry boats to dock in our vineyard. We give thanks for smooth sailing through the pulmonary vein into the storm of the left atrium. We give thanks for the perfect black solar repeater that induces the primary electromagnetic wave, opening the mouth of the Kodesh HaKodeshim. We give thanks for the mechanical wave produced when the mouth of the Kodesh HaKodeshim closes. We give thanks to the ray wave, reflecting on the semi-lunar valves, opening a pathway into the holy royal arch of the Wa scepter. We give thanks for the mechanical wave produced when the lunar gate into the holy royal arch of the Wa scepter closes. We give thanks for the magnetism of the Most Holy, the magnetism that repels and attracts the ferry boats of light 60,000 miles every 60 seconds throughout our vessels and our caves. Amen.
This is the Bible of the ElectroGenic cell. It's not just the best book ever written on the subject, it's the only book ever written on this subject. Brought to you by supporters of Christ.
All right. Whew. Yeah, get you a little fresh air after that. All right, get you a little fresh air after that. If you don't know why you're supposed to be exercising, this might be your first time watching it, so you don't know you're supposed to be exercising during that. Right? You're supposed to have been getting you some exercising right there, working on that counter current heat exchange. Right? That's a very important part of your health. Right? Metabolic health, counter current heat exchange. If you don't know that, if you're not familiar with that term, that's because you have not been studying the Wa-Scepter book, right? You haven't been studying the Wa-Scepter book, right? The Protein Shake Fountain of Youth book, right? Like, Doc, did you see the Fountain of Youth? Did you see that movie? Of course I see that movie. Right? Of course I seen that movie. But yeah. Counter current heat exchange. Right? Counter current heat exchange. In the modern era, the disciplines of human physiology and metabolism have produced extraordinary insight into the biochemical processes underlying life. The literature on mitochondrial function, metabolic flexibility, cardiac physiology, and nutritional science provide a rich foundation for understanding how the human body manages energy. Yet, despite this knowledge, the dominant cultural metaphors applied to metabolism remain both outdated and misleading. The body is still viewed primarily as a combustion engine, a furnace that burns calories. This model, while convenient, fails to capture actual processes at work within cells and tissues. At the heart of biological energy transformation is not burning, but ElectroGenesis, the controlled flow of electrons through bioenergetic pathways to produce bioelectrical current, mechanical work, and radiant light. The doctrine of ElectroGenesis offers a framework that is both scientifically accurate and spiritually resonant, bridging modern biochemistry with timeless metaphysical wisdom. This chapter reviews the literature underpinning the core tenets of ElectroGenesis and demonstrates how this model offers superior explanatory and practical power for addressing metabolic illness. Mitochondrial electrogenesis, the heart of metabolism. Electron flow and ATP synthesis. The foundational mechanism of human metabolism is the electron transport chain within the inner mitochondrial membrane. The ETC is a series of protein complexes that facilitate the flow of electrons derived from the oxidation of macronutrients. As electrons traverse this chain, they drive the pumping of protons into the intermembrane space, establishing an electrochemical gradient. This gradient is then utilized by ATP synthase to phosphorylate ADP to ATP, the universal molecule of biological work. Now, quick things I wanted to point out real quick. Like I said, right, in the previous series, I guess the last 100 or so books, right? Okay, so hold on. All right, so starting with this book right here, right? Right? Melanin versus Diabetes, book 1. See how small this book is? This is the book that started everything, right? In this book, we use the traditional framework for referencing articles, right? And after we go through our research, we literally provide 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 30, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 40, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 50, 1, 2. So we provide over 50 different references for the science that sometimes so new people would think is just, but everything is referenced. Everything is referenced. We're referencing, right? And people were so lazy that eventually I just started grabbing excerpts, abstracts, or whole entire articles to put into the books, right? To make it easier for people to actually read the reference material, right? But with this book series, I went back to a more traditional model to save space, right? So like with the Codex book, is 700 and something pages. There's no articles in that book. So don't think that it's going to be 700 and something pages and then that's going to be some amount of that. That's the only articles that's in that book are ours. So the references are back small, like how you see right here, right? That's a reference, right? We just, boop, boop, little reference right there. That's it. The articles is ours. This is an article that we're going through, right? This is the major article that we're going through, right? To break down the introduction, right? Now, outside of this, you have stories, you have lessons packaged as sermons, you have prayers, right? You have more prayers, because I know people was asking me, like, up to this point, we had Inky Prayer number 1, Inky Prayer number 2, and mostly focus on Inky Prayer number 2 with the exercise and blah, blah, blah. Now we got a bunch more. We, like, all this time I've been working. You know what I'm saying? Like sometimes I'll be writing 3 or 4 books at once, right? A book will come, but I'm working on multiple books because as I'm going through stuff, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, you go here. Then I might spend a few days and then look at that and go, is that ready to drop? Nah, that's not ready to drop. You hold tight, right? So through the winter, we was dropping, boop. Christ, the crucifixion, this quantum Christian, like we was dropping certain, and then we comedic naturopathy, rough ashlar, trigonometry. And then we, even though it's still, but that whole time I'm still working on some things. It's just some things take harder, not take harder, take longer to put together, right? Some things take longer to put together, especially coming with something like this, where it's our own white paper. We have our own white paper now even if it's under a pseudonym, like I said, it's our white paper for ElectroGenesis. So now we have a whole new paradigm and philosophy backed by science and research and blah, 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 and referenced properly and well, however you want to do it, right? However you want to do it, we want all the smoke. We want none of the burn. None of the burn, all of the smoke, right? So we go through some very interesting stuff here, right? And then let me give y'all a sneak peek. Let me give y'all a sneak peek to one of these other Okay, hold on. I want to show y'all this one. Because even the children, so the children have characters, right? The children have characters. And so Kylie and Aubrey, they got into their bag, you know, they got into their bag and they put together something. Right. So this I want to share some of what they put together. Right. Because, and this is a full circle moment, right? Let me tell you, this is a full circle moment because before Amber had got, well, yeah, this is back in the days. So before Amber had got ran over, right? People had known all of my children, right? But I didn't have these children, right? So this is my second five, right? For some people that sounds crazy. Like, wait, what does he mean second five? This is my second five, right? This is my second five. My first five is Alexis, Ari, Tony, Amber, and James, right? That was my first five. Yeah, like, yo, you got 10 children? I'm like, the herbs be working. Yeah, I'm just saying, the herbs work, right? But Tony had did a book, right? Because Tony used to come out and do lectures and stuff with me, you know, when she was little. And she had did a book on light. She did a book on light. And on the cover of the book was a light bulb. And she was talking about the metaphor between, you know, light bulbs in the body and the temple of Dendera even, and, you know, got into all kind of stuff. And that was a pretty good vibe back then. Actually, that was pretty popular. We even eventually went to some schools and did some lectures, and I would speak to the parents and she would speak to the children. So, but anyway, it's like a whole, you know, cycle. You know, it's like a cycle for it to come back around. But now the little ones putting together, you know, their thing with their little pseudonyms, right? They pseudonyms. Are cells like light bulbs? A study of filaments, ions, and biophotons in the living temple. Abstract. The body is a living lamp. The cell is a sacred bulb. The filaments within, unseen yet mighty, conduct the currents of life and shine with the light of vitality. Are cells like light bulbs? In many ways, yes. Both light bulbs and cells have special filaments that carry electricity and make light. In a light bulb, the filament is made of metal. When electricity flows through it, the filament heats up and shines. In a cell, the filaments are made up of proteins like actin and collagen. When ions flow through these protein filaments, they create tiny electric currents and emit small flashes of light called biophotons. These biophotons help cells communicate and heal. Just like a light bulb needs the right flow of current to glow, cells need the right flow of ions to stay alive and connected. The body's filament network is like a living web of light and energy. Our paper explores how these biological filaments work, how many ions they conduct, and what kinds of light they produce. We show that every healthy cell is, in a way, its own tiny light bulb, glowing softly as part of the great temple of the body. Dedication. We dedicate this paper to every talented conductor who seeks to understand the light within. May your body shine brightly and your flow remain unbroken. Okay, now this is a different book, though. This is a different book. This is not from the Codex. Let me see here. Let me see here if I can pull up. Let me see what book this is. Let's see what happens. Oh, here it goes right here, I believe. Nope, this is not the book, but these are the new books, though. These are the new books. These three right here. See, 5 of 7. So I believe, yeah, here's what I'm reading from. Right here. Rich abs versus the heart attack. Yeah. Yeah, so I'm reading from this book right here. But all of these books have this same approach where we're going heavy with the science. Like we're not playing in these books. Now, obviously, this book is the main book of all of the books, right? But all of the books associated, we're going like to the moon. We're going to the moon, right? So remember, Cash App, Zelle, Inky, that is not a smooth plug. My bad. I just realized that we've been talking for 2 hours and I haven't said, hit the like button, hit the subscribe, hit the Cash App, hit the Zelle, hit something. Come on now. Hit the Amazon.
This is the Bible of the ElectroGenic cell. It's not just the best book ever written on the subject, it's the only book ever written on this subject. Brought to you by supporters of Christ.
Right? So they going in. They did a good job with this, right? Of course, I helped them with, format and language and stuff like that. But trust me, they worked hard on this, right? So, are cells like light bulbs? In many ways, the answer is yes. Both cells and light bulbs use filament to conduct electricity and produce light. Filaments in light bulbs. Inside a traditional light bulb is a filament, often made of tungsten metal. When electricity flows through the filament, it heats up until it glows. The glowing filament gives off visible light and some invisible light, such as infrared. Light bulbs also create magnetic fields when current flows through them. This happens because moving electrical charges produce magnetic fields. Incandescent bulbs. The heated filament produces both light and a small magnetic field, which oscillates with the AC power. LED bulbs. These create lower magnetic fields through dimmers, and electronics inside can make them stronger. Fluorescent bulbs. They emit magnetic fields due to the current flowing through gases and the transformer. While the magnetic fields of light bulbs are usually small, they are always present when electricity flows. Filaments in human cells. Human cells also have filaments inside them made not of metal but of proteins like actin and microtubules. These biological filaments are piezoelectric and conduct ions, which are tiny charged particles. As ions flow through and around these filaments, electric currents are produced inside the cell. These currents also create magnetic fields, just like in light bulbs. Although the magnetic fields of cells are very weak, they can still be measured by sensitive instruments like MEG and MCG. When ion flow is strong and organized, human cells can also emit light called biophotons, very faint but real. This light can be in the ultraviolet, visible, or near infrared range. Cells use this light for communication and healing, right? And then they go through a little comparison of light bulbs and cells. Okay, and then blah, 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 blah. Okay, both light bulbs and cells are light-producing systems that rely on filament networks to conduct energy. In light bulbs, the purpose is to create bright light for the outside world. In cells, the purpose is to create organized electric and light signals inside and between cells to maintain life, flow, and healing. In this way, we can say that every healthy human cell is like a tiny living light bulb with filaments, current, magnetic fields, and light. The more coherent and balanced the current, the brighter the light of life shines within us. The nature of filaments, light, and information. Both cells and light bulbs are built around the same great principle of the universe, the flow of electricity and magnetism and light through tiny filaments. In a light bulb, a metal filament like tungsten carries electrons, tiny charged particles when electricity flows. As these electrons move through the filament, they cause it to heat up and glow, producing visible light and magnetic fields. However, light bulbs need power from outside. They do not generate energy on their own. They burn energy to produce light. Human cells have a different kind of filament made from living proteins, actin, collagen, and microtubules. These filaments carry ions instead of electrons. When ions move along the filaments, they create tiny electric currents and also generate magnetic fields, just like in a light bulb. But there is one great difference. Cells generate their own power. Through metabolism, they produce energy and move ions to create flow. As this flow happens, cells emit their own light, biophotons, which are soft flashes of ultraviolet, visible, and near infrared light. Now we must ask ourselves, does this flow carry information? The answer is yes in both cases. In light bulbs and modern technology, electrons carry information by how they move and how their flow is controlled. The presence, absence, speed, and pattern of electron flow represents binary information in computers or memory devices. Electrons can also be used in quantum computing to carry deeper levels of information. In cells, ions moving across filaments and membranes carry rich information about voltage, timing, rhythm, and health. This information is used for nerve signals, muscle contraction, heartbeat regulation, and even thought and memory. The patterns of ion flow shape the entire bioelectrical field of the body.
This is the Bible of the ElectroGenic cell. It's not just the best book ever written on the subject, it's the only book ever written on this subject. Brought to you by supporters of Christ.
Ooh, I'm telling y'all, this is the most information. This is the most information I ever put in books. Like we went crazy. We went crazy in these books. When I say crazy, I mean we went crazy. Like, let me see. Let me find another one for you. Let me find another one for you. Okay, so let's jump into this book real quick. Let's jump into this book real quick right here. This right here, Rich Abs and the ElectroGenic Cell, right? This right here is, I ain't gonna say my favorite. I ain't gonna say my favorite because the codex is, you know, the codex is the codex. The codex is the codex. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I can't say my favorite, but this right here, this ish right here, this right here. Oh, I'm very proud of this. I'm very proud of this. Oh, I'm very proud of this. Very proud of this right here. Very proud of this. This, I think, that's our electrogenic cell. And I think as a diagram, it does more. As a diagram, it does more immediately to get a person to understanding what's going on inside their cell than what's floating around in any type of textbook that there is. Right? I think so. This book, Rich Abs and the ElectroGenic Cell, is kind of just like going through and breaking down, you know, going in depth with the cell, right? Going in depth with the cell. And so we have of course, a paper, right? The photovoltaic and electrogenic filament field, a new model of metabolic health, chronic disease, and human performance by Rich Abs. Abstract. We are not burned. We are not firewood. We are filament fields of the sun. This paper presents a metabolic, bioelectric, and structural model of modern disease in pigment-rich and metabolically vulnerable populations. The so-called doctrine of the burned, an engineered collapse of the body's natural filament field architecture. Traditional models of diabetes, hypertension, heart disease, and dyslipidemia have focused on caloric imbalance and genetic risk. This paper argues instead that these conditions are fundamentally driven by bioelectric collapse, filament field dysfunction, mitochondrial reactive oxygen species storms, fascia and cytoskeleton stiffening, loss of current and coherence. The human body is not a furnace. It is a filament-based conductor of light, charge, and information. Every human cell membrane functions as a semiconducting crystal disk, a dynamic platform of integrated circuits, gates, and channels supporting a living field. Within this architecture, a network of cytoskeletal filaments, actin filaments, microtubules, and intermediate filaments act as bio-nanowires. Actin filaments and microtubules conduct ionic waves, transmit electrical signals, and regulate intracellular dynamics. These filaments display low impedance, can be modeled as RLC circuits and propagate signals that influence gene expression, migration, and function. Counter-ion polarization and nonlinear transmission further enable amplification of signals across cellular and tissue scales. When healthy, this filament field allows for precise vascular tone regulation, coherent insulin signaling and glucose uptake, balanced cholesterol processing and transport, synchronized. So we go in. I just again, we go in. So as you know, as we get more like as we get more into, like as people, because we got, the stories. We got the stories, you know what I'm saying? Like, let me go to one of these stories. Here's story number 7. Not that. That.
Ram. Opening shot. Viral clips of Rich doing heart-to-heart resuscitation reversals on diabetes patients. Millions of views. TikTok, YouTube, Telegram, Instagram. Diabetes cured without big pharma. Poor abs recovered, hugging Rich in front of the mega church construction site. International comments flowing in. Nigeria, Brazil, Korea, France. Scene 1. Rich abs morning ritual. Temple of the body, bedroom. 6 a.m. 6 a.m.-ish. Rich abs, shirtless, carved with muscle, stands in front of a sunrise window. He holds an isometric squat stance, fists pressed against invisible resistance. Breathes slow, eyes closed, heart sinking with the sun. 60 seconds. Now cut to the kitchen. His wife, Kai, hands him a blue magic and oatmeal smoothie. Kai says, "You're gonna need it. They mad with you. They all pissed off." Rich smiles back and says, "Good. Let them come." Scene 2. The ruffians convene. A dark boardroom, undisclosed location. The lord of stagnant current, crackling with static energy, eyes cold, sits possessed in a corporate body. The circuit breaker agent, all black, tactical, cybernetic eyes glowing. And Dr. Null, suit sharp, glasses glinting, watching the world feeds. Dr. Null says, "Rich is disrupting global pharma. He's teaching the masses. We must stop the church before it's built." Lord of stagnant current. He says, his body is strong, but the currents can be cut. Circuit breaker agent says, "I'll fry his circuits myself." Dr. Null smiles coldly. Begin Operation Nullfield. Scene 3. The street outside the megachurch. Rich Ab steps out of the gym. His daughter Falcon is with him. A black SUV screeches up. Circuit breaker agent leads a strike team. Automatic pulses from laser focused rifles are drawn. Rich Abs yells, "Falcon, get back!" Rich leaps forward, fluid jujitsu. He spins under the gunfire, snaps one attacker's arm, kicks the pulse rifle skyward. Falcon ducks, rolls, grabs her hover scooter, rams one agent with it. Circuit breaker agent lunges. Shock baton humming. Rich catches the wrist, flips him over in a brutal throw, lands a knee on his chest. Rich Ab says coldly, "This body ain't running on your current." Knocks him out with one punch to the grill. Police siren sounds. Rich scoops Falcon and they vanish into the shadow.
Here's how a doctor treats toenail fungus without a prescription. If your toenail fungus came back out,
This is why you have to go to Amazon and get the book, Rich Abs, Poor Abs, now.